One winning product is all it takes. I'm not even gonna guess how many times you've heard this, and I'll admit I've said this many times before, but without proper context. So in this video, I'm gonna show you why winning creatives are the backbone of your e-commerce brand and the actual creative testing process that we use so that you can replicate this for your e-commerce business, even if you haven't seen what a 6 or a 7-figure ad looks like. But before I dive into the video, I wanna let you know that this is going to be part 1 of a 2-part creative series. So if you find it valuable and you want me to reveal part 2, just comment the word creative below this video, and at 30 comments, I'm gonna go ahead and release that second part. All right, now let's dive in. So right now you're looking at a little Miro board that I whipped up for you that just kind of goes over the hierarchy of how we test products or new offers, right? So you might have the same product, but you want to reach a new customer, a new angle. Maybe you have a new offer where you're bundling a product, or you've made a new landing page with the objective of reaching a new type of customer. And so I want you to take everything that I say here with a grain of salt. And if you have to adjust this to your budget or the amount of new offers or products that you're testing and things of that nature, that's totally fine. There's no right or wrong way of going about this. This is just the best framework that we've seen over the past couple of years, and especially over the past couple of months, it being that much more important than the old style of creative testing. All right, so first and foremost, ad strategy aside, you have your new offer, whether that is a product or, again, whether you're just trying to reach a new customer with a new landing page and you're trying to speak to that customer in a way that they feel heard and in a way that might be different from your other creatives. So you want to differentiate this new offer campaign from your previous offers, your previous product tests, your previous landing pages, so you can really split test the difference in how these perform versus those previous ones. So first, let's lay out some terms. So you can see concept here, and then you can see hook, and then you see variation. So how we define a concept is when you're trying to go after one specific customer avatar, and generally there's one overarching angle that you're using to reach that avatar. So for example, let's say I'm selling a glow-in-the-dark dog leash. I might have 2 unique customer avatars. One that is an active runner or jogger that takes their dog on walks with them, either super late at night or early in the morning when it's dark, that wants to be safe. Now the other avatar might be a older dog owner that has trouble seeing at night and wants to be protected, but for a different reason than the jogger might. They're more active, maybe they're crossing more roads, and they're attentive, but their dog's everywhere at once, whereas the old person just wants to be able to see their dog and make sure that they're in a safe environment. Now, there's also multiple layers of angles that you can use to reach those 2 different customer avatars. Now, for sake of time, I'm not gonna go too in-depth, but you can use your creativity, you can use your imagination, you can use ChatGPT if you have no creativity or imagination, and it can spit out a few angles if you literally type in those exact customer avatars that I just mentioned. Then we have our hook and our text variations. Now, this is essentially just a form of split testing an overarching concept for the text and the headlines or the benefits that might show in your image ads, and specifically for those first couple of seconds of your hook in a video ad. And I'll explain why hook swapping and why text swapping is so important. But now that I've laid out those terms, but there's 3 more terms that I wanted to quickly share with you so that you have more context. So you'll see over here that we have our target KPIs for our hook rate, our hold rate, and our click-through rate. So from a 10,000 foot overview, your hook rate is the percentage of people that see your ad and that have an impression on your ad that actually watch 3 seconds or more of your video. Now, your hold rate can be calculated in 2 different ways depending on your preference. But the way that we calculate it is the percentage of people that actually watch your hook, those first 3 seconds, divided by a metric called through play. And a through play is considered someone who watches 15 seconds or more of your video ad. Now, fun fact, if your video ad is less than 15 seconds long and they watch the entirety of it, that's also going to be considered a through play. And so that can skew the metrics a little bit, but overall, we prefer using 3-second video views divided by through play instead of total impressions divided by through play, because we already know if we have a hook deficit based on our hook rate. And so what we want to know or figure out or assess within the data is why people who are watching the hook aren't watching at least 15 seconds of the video. And lastly, we have our CTR. Now, what we like to look at is the unique link click-through rate, because that tells us how many people actually clicked through to our website from the ad relative to the total amount of people that were shown that ad. All right, so now that you understand the terms, here is how we lay things out. So we have our new offer campaign. Now, if you're running a CBO or an ABO, it doesn't really matter. It just depends on what works for the account and what you've seen perform well for the product or the offer in the past. If you've ran it before, if it's a brand new product, again, it doesn't really matter because you're still going to be figuring things out. So just know that this is totally going to be custom to your budget and to your experience with your account. That being said, what I would suggest if you are running a CBO is to basically take the number of ad sets, in this case 4, that you're testing, and multiply that by anywhere between 1 to 2 times your target CPA. So let's say you get a product for $20, you sell it for $80, you have a $60 margin, but to factor in your advertising costs, your team expenses, all of this stuff, you don't just want to get a $60 CPA because then you're actually losing money on those other expenses. You might settle for something like a $30 or a $40 CPA. So in that case, you would take that $40 CPA and you would multiply that by 4 and you would get a $160 budget. Now, again, if that sounds a little bit too high for your current ad budget, you could test with as little as $20 or $30 a day and spend. You just have to wait a little bit longer to get the necessary data to be able to make sufficient decisions. Now, if you're running an ABO, usually you want to do anywhere between 1 to 2 times the target CPA for each ad set. So again, 4 ad sets. So if your target CPA is $40, then you're still going to have $160 worth of budget, but it's going to be allocated at that ad set level. Now, if you're confident in this new offer or this new product, or you have a little bit more money to put behind it and you want to accelerate the rate in which you can get data back and make faster decisions, then I would suggest going to upwards of 2 times the target CPA, if not even higher than that. And now going back to those KPI terms, usually we're looking for greater than a 20% hold rate and greater than a 3% click-through rate. Now, you might see that with the unit economics of your product and the cost of traffic on Facebook, on TikTok, on Google, wherever you're testing these creatives, you might find that you can get away with a 15% hook rate, a 10% hold rate, a 1% click-through rate, and that's fine. And so rather than looking at these things as like industry averages or at face value, I would look at your top performing audiences if you have them in the account, and then your top performing creatives within those ad sets, and then figure out what those metrics are, and then just use that as a rule of thumb before you start to get too specific with these data points. But if you're testing a completely new product and you have no idea what to look for, you can use these as a rule of thumb. All right, so now we have our campaign and then we have our 4 ad sets. In each of these ad sets, we have a different concept. So again, think back to the definition of a concept. This means that we might be going after different customer avatars, or we might be using different marketing angles to reach the same avatar for some of these. But just know that there's at least one unique angle and one unique avatar that we're going after in these. There's rarely going to be overlap in those things until you find a winning angle or a winning avatar. Then you can create iteration ads, which is when you're saying almost the same things, but just in slightly different ways. But that'll be for a different video. Okay, so within each of these ad sets, which are going to be their own unique creative concepts, we're going to have 3 individual ads. Now, in this case, concept 1 is a video ad, whereas concept 3 is an image ad. So with video ads, what we do is we swap out those first 3 to 5 seconds of the hook, because everyone that watches the first 15 seconds of the ad has to watch those first 3 seconds. And so it's inarguably one of the most important parts and elements of that ad creative. And so we can literally take one core video, let's say that's 30 seconds long, and we can simply swap out different hooks, and we can have wildly different performances just based on the hooks alone. And so the old way of creative testing was just to have this one size fits all ad. You're not really using any specific marketing angle, and you're just hoping that the one hook that you have is going to pair well with the rest of the ad and do a good enough job of getting people to their website. But now you want to have at least 2 to 3 variations of each of these ads, where again, the heavy lifting on the editor side or on the creative strategist side, however your team looks, if you just have an editor, that's totally fine, right? The heavy lifting on their side is going to be really just making one core ad here and then just swapping out those first 3 seconds, either different text, different sound, different voiceovers, using AI. You can get very creative with it, and this allows you to increase your testing capacity significantly. And in 2024 and beyond, you really, really want to make sure you can test as many creatives and angles and avatars as possible because of a metric called hit rate. Now, your hit rate is the percentage of profitable or above KPI ads that you have out of the total new ad creatives that you test during a given week, a given month, or even a given quarter. And usually what we shoot for is around a 20% hit rate or higher. So that means if we test 5 new ads this week, we want at least one of them to perform well. Now the problem is most people for a new offer or for a new product, they test less than 5 ad creatives. And so with that 20% hit rate, based on the math, they wouldn't even have one successful ad creative. So they might be sitting on a winning product or a winning offer, but they're just not testing enough creative statistically for them to have the highest likelihood of one of those new creatives to actually perform and scale profitably. And I can't tell you how many times I've had people come to me and say that they want to stop running a specific product because it's no longer working, when in reality, they're just not testing enough creatives for it to statistically make sense. All right, so back to concept number 1, right? We have our avatar, we have the angle that we're trying to go after this specific customer avatar, and then we have 3 different hooks that we're split testing, all behind really the same core video. And now what this is gonna allow Facebook to do is allocate the spend based on the hook variations that Facebook sees are performing the best and that have the highest likelihood of actually getting you purchases, rather than testing each of these individual ads in their own ad set, which by the way, you can totally do. And we've tried this many, many times before. And on some accounts, it works really, really well. But if you want to have the most efficient spend of your budget, then I always recommend grouping the creatives that have similarities and that are going after the same customer in just one ad set. So in the scenario before, we have 2 totally different avatars. If we made one really good creative for the night jogger and one for the old lady walking her dog who wants to just see better and be more protected, it doesn't make sense to bring those 2 ads in one ad set, because you're totally going to confuse Facebook's targeting, because they resonate with totally different audiences. And so in that scenario, it'd make much more sense to have 2 unique ad sets and put one ad for each of those avatars within those respective ad sets. But again, in this case, one concept is going after that one avatar, oftentimes with one core angle, and all we're doing is swapping out the hook. So it makes sense to just consolidate and group those into one ad set at a time. Now, same thing with image ads, right? We're going to swap out primary text, headlines, benefit bullet points, whatever you do include in that image, because one keyword or 2 keywords that are bolded, underlined, italicized can literally be the difference between a 1% click-through rate and an unprofitable ad, and a 4% click-through rate and a very profitable ad. Now, whether or not you test one concept or you test 8 concepts per week for this new offer, this new product, or an existing product, it doesn't really matter. But just know that in general, the more the better, as long as it's good quality creative. You don't want to just create more ads just for the sake of creating more ads. You want to actually have a purpose behind it, where you've actually done some form of like a model where you've said, hey, my best ads lasted this long, they had these metrics, and X percentage of these new creatives that I tested performed. And then based on those numbers, you should let the data tell you what you should likely be doing for your brand. All right, so now that you know the kind of overarching concept and whether or not you use this exact campaign structure or not, I definitely suggest that you test multiple concepts and multiple hooks and text variations within those concepts. I'm going to actually pull back the curtains of a brand that I personally work with, that I've been helping build a creative acquisition system for, and you'll get a better idea of what I mean by a concept versus a hook. All right, so as you can see here, we have 4 image concepts and we have 3 text variations of each of these concepts. And as you can see, there are very slight differences in color and in primary text. So in all 3 of these, the actual benefits are the exact same, but the thing that changes is the headline. So we have confidence without the hangover, and we have confidence made easy. Now, all of these, we're going after people that go to social events and they depend on alcohol to be social and to have a good time. But obviously there's very serious consequences that come with that. And so this one isn't necessarily labeling the customer with a problem that might be off-putting to them. We're trying to keep it a little bit more free-flowing and open-ended to just spark their curiosity, to just get to our website. This one actually really paints the picture of the consequence of not having our product, which is obviously the negatives of alcohol. And this one implies that you can be social at a variety of different events without dependency on alcohol. And so they're all kind of saying the same thing, but in slightly different ways. And now we've been able to increase the testing output and also increase the likelihood that one of those 3 specific unique ads perform, even if the other 2 don't perform in that concept. And so again, what most e-commerce brand owners are doing are they're just picking one that they think is broad and that's going to resonate with someone, and they're just being straight up lazy, when literally just replacing that primary headline can make the world of a difference. So I'll show you guys one more example. So we have keep the confidence, kick out the anxiety, keep the vibes, kick out the anxiety, keep the confidence, kick out the alcohol, right? Very similar ways of trying to say the same thing and trying to show the benefits of the product, but it can be perceived incredibly different depending on the customer that's actually seeing the ad. So now you're like, all right, what does this look like in video form? So these ads are definitely shorter form. They're not like too meticulously designed and crafted with some fancy brief. And it's so that we can make it more personal and casual and not feel like a direct response ad. So again, these are only 10 seconds long. And the main difference is it's the same B-roll. It's the same clips that the editor used. The only difference is that we're swapping out the text. So this one says, POV, you tried the viral social anxiety mocktail and go from being a homebody to wanting to go out basically every night. This one says, POV, you tried it and go from being a reserved introvert to a friend-making machine. So again, we're saying basically the same thing, but in different ways. This one's like, oh, you want to go out every night. The other one is saying you have a much easier time making more friends. So the person who's new to a city, for example, that they just moved into, that might be looking to go out, but they're not necessarily wanting to be this like feral rat and go out every single day. They might resonate with, hey, I want to be a friend-making machine. Like that's a really positive label that has positive associations with it, whereas going out all the time might not. And then lastly, again, a little bit more of like a softer play on words. We just say to becoming a social butterfly basically overnight. So it's not saying you're going to be a party animal. It's also not necessarily implying that you're going to be a friend-making machine. It's just saying, hey, go from maybe being introverted, which is something that you don't want to continue to experience and miss out on all the goodness of surrounding yourself with people in life, to just being more social, right? Being a social butterfly. Now, same thing with these variations and with this core concept, right? It's just a quote from a customer, a different quote and a different quote that shows 3 customers' experiences with the product. And while it's very subtle, again, it can make the world of a difference. Like if a guy is seeing this and he sees that the review is from another male, that might make him more inclined to actually purchase than seeing a review from a female. As crazy as that sounds. And that's why it's so important to split test these variations over getting hung up on making like the one perfect creative for a new product or a new offer. And so for some final notes, this applies whether you have a 7-figure per month D2C brand that has inventory in the United States and a million other countries, and you're venture backed and all that fancy stuff, or you're a new dropshipper that's just testing brand new products, maybe even with a limited budget, in which case you can adjust some of these budgets depending on what you can handle. But no matter what type of e-commerce company you're running, what your supply chain looks like, it is so important to create a system for your business to be able to support a high volume of ad creative tests if you want the brand to go anywhere far anytime soon. All right, so if you found this breakdown helpful, if you can comment the word creative, it would mean the world to me because it'll help give me the feedback that I need to know that you guys want to see more content like this that's more tactical, really breaking down the high-level frameworks. And if you want to see a specific video topic or category of e-commerce that you want me to cover, just comment that down below as well. And as always, if you want one-on-one help scaling your e-commerce brand, I want you to go over to Instagram and DM me the word ecom, and I'll share more information about how I can help. All right, I'll catch you in the next video.